Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money and taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well, then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. So let me ask you something. What does freedom look like to you and in your business right now? And better yet, what did it look like 5, 10, or even 15 years ago? What's the next level of freedom in your evolution that you're hoping to unlock? These are questions that I always love unpacking and answering to really understand how our definition of freedom is subjective and it's an evolution. It's something that's ever evolving and ever changing. One of the reasons why I want to have today's guest on is to talk about his story and how he was able to basically challenge norms and expectations of what creating financial independence, financial freedom was, and doing what works for him and doing it unapologetically. That's why I'm excited to welcome on the show today, Mike Ayala. Now, Mike understands that building a thriving business and having enough time for family is difficult, but those things are not mutually exclusive. Many hard-hitting entrepreneurs believe it's impossible to have both, but Mike and his wife, Cara, are an example of how you can completely defy that with the right intention and the right people by your side. Now, Mike's been through some adversity from a young age, and his experiences led him to finding what he values most in life, which is family, freedom, and loving relationships, while also having the wealth to fund that lifestyle. He was able to sketch out his vision for what he wanted, and he turned it into reality through sheer determination and help from the right people. And we're going to be talking about that in today's episode. So by age 24, Mike founded his first construction company, and he's been involved with over 2,000 projects totaling over $1 billion. He scaled one of his companies to more than 100 employees and sold it at a $12 million valuation. Today, he helps other people find financial freedom and use that freedom to live life on their terms. He's a real estate investor, founder, venture capitalist, and most importantly, father and husband. And I'm really excited to share more of Mike's story with you on today's episode. Hey, Mike, welcome to Keep What You Earn.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So our listeners just got their dose of your, bio and your accomplishments and a bit of your story, but I would love if you could share more about who Mike Ayala is and a little bit more about how you got here.
Yeah, it's kind of quite the journey, but current day, been married to Cara for 23 years, almost 24. Our kids are 22, 20, and 19. Just real quick on the background too, I think one of the things that really kind of motivates me, which I'm sure we're going to get into some of this, but when I was little, we didn't have money. My dad was, an alcoholic, drug addict, in and out of my life. And, there was a lot of things that I knew to be better in life. And so, I've often said this, I think the negative experiences in life can teach us just as much as the positive ones. And same thing with mentors. So, I don't harbor anything negative against my dad. He taught me a ton. But as Cara and I, we got married at a really early age. And that's one of the things that we really spent a lot of time, even in high school, talking about vision and what we wanted our life to look like. And I spent a lot of time thinking about that from a perspective of what I didn't have. And I think that's what really drives me and drove me through the process. And the reason why we started the business, the reason why we've done the majority of what we've done, seen the world with our kids, is because I wanted to be a better husband, I wanted to be a better dad, and I wanted a better lifestyle. So I think that's kind of really sums up, what kind of drives and motivates me today. It's just really, I sum it up in 3 things, really: relationships, experiences, and memories. Those are the most important things. And I think that's what we're all really looking for. And I think it's a lot more simple than what we really make it. I think we think it has to be complex, and it doesn't.
And I love that. I love relationships, experiences, memories, because relationships can be built from memories, which are built from experiences. So it's kind of this interrelation of these different things too. And I think that as we get older, as we learn more, become more experienced, we realize how valuable those things are over the typical metrics we're all chasing in our early 20s.
Yeah, it's so true. And like I said, I think I think there's a lot of pressure on us from society to, create this life that we're not really spending a lot of time thinking about what we want. It's like these pre-programmed ideas about what success is and what life should look like. And I think if we really just pause and think about what we want, it's pretty simple.
Totally. Now, you started a business at what, 24, right?
Yeah.
What motivated you to start a business at 24? And I'm asking this also because my husband started a business at 22. And I know exactly what his process was and why he did it. What was your reason for deciding to go that route as opposed to, let's say, corporate or another type of job?
So I was working, just kind of back to the experience and the lifestyle that Kara and I said we wanted to design. I was working for a company at that point in time. I was a plumber by trade and grew pretty quick in the ranks and was running a big job, a big casino remodel expansion out of town. We had two kids. So Dylan was probably 3 at that point in time. Tim was just barely 2, and Kara was pregnant with Caton. And I'm working out of town, like literally working 100 plus hours a week. I would work all week out of town. I would drive home on a Sunday night. I was running this project. And so, the guys would get off at 5 or 6 at night, and then I'd go back and do paperwork. And then, so like I said, I'd drive home, Sunday night, grab some dinner, wash my clothes, and we'd turn around Monday morning at 3 a.m. and just head back and do the same thing all over again. And, Kara and I just like looked and we said, man, this is not the life that we had kind of envisioned. And I'm glad that I realized that at an early age, because I think it takes some people till they're 40, 50, 60 to realize that, they're a slave to the system, if you will. And on the other side of our fears is really where, we accomplish what it's actually that we want in life. But Karen and I had this conversation and a few things lined up. And one of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, always says the eyes only see and the ears only hear what the brain is looking for. So, when we set an intention around something like this is not the life we wanted, things just started snowballing for us. And we left, and it was scary. Three little kids, quitting a job of security, and launching our own business. But man, I'm so glad we did it and never looked back.
That's awesome too, especially I have to call out, especially having kids, because I feel like everyone uses that as the excuse that, well, I have kids, so I can't, or I have this, so I can't do that, or it's going to be really challenging. It's going to be very difficult. And doing that in the wake of, yeah, it's going to be challenging, but on the other side of this is something better. That's huge. And you also sold the business, right? Talk to me about the process of deciding to sell the business, going through the sale, what was going through your mind at the time in terms of the shift that was happening?
So that was 2014 when we actually ended up selling. And there's probably going to be a theme today. I've found a theme in my life, and it's usually, when I figure out what it is that I really actually want, and you get clear on that, then God really comes alongside of us and people and humans and makes things happen. But in 2012, Kara said, she made this comment. She said, "Hey, I want to take a year off when Caton, our youngest, graduates." So this was 2012, and Caton graduates in 2022, which was obviously last year. So I'm forward looking, and I said, "Okay, that sounds great. Whatever. We come up with these crazy harebrained ideas. We want to take a year off." And there was a lot of thinking behind that. We got married so young, we started a business so young, we had kids so young. Our entire adult life to that point, and even up until a year ago, was raising kids. Like literally the moment we became adults, we were married and started having kids and then running businesses. And so this was like her driving thing. And I came back a couple days later and I'm like, "Are you serious about this?" And the answer was yes. And so then I started having conversations with my business partner, and I'm like, "Hey, listen, I think we should bring in a general manager." I was the GM at that point in time. I didn't tell him that, hey, Kara wants to take a year off here in 10 years. And, a lot of times our mindset or current frame of reference, our limiting beliefs are the only thing that keep us from these crazy, wild goals. But when I said this to him, he said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I started realizing that my business partner and I did not have a values alignment. We were great business partners. I didn't have this language then, but I'm a visionary. He's an integrator. So we were great business partners up until like I realized we didn't have a values alignment. And so that kind of led us on this journey of what does it look like if we're no longer partners? And I knew at that moment that I either needed to create a situation where we sold the company or he bought me out or I bought him out. Well, you fast forward probably 3 months and we get an offer from a huge, well, it was KPMG. They approached us and said, "Hey, we have a, international $8 billion company that wants to buy a certain division of your company." So we went through 8 months of hell, like literally negotiating with this private equity behemoth. The deal fell apart at the finish line. But the thing that we had at the end of that was my business partner and I sitting on this side of the table as an aligned force, realizing what 50% of our business was worth because we were 50-50 owners and we're negotiating against someone else. It's always hard to negotiate, against family or against a business partner or whatever. But when we were negotiating against someone else, it took all of that complexity out of it. So when it was said and done, to make a long story short, I realized like, that was my exit. And then when that fell apart, I almost went into like a little spiral for a minute. But then I realized, hey, we have a valuation now. And my brain went to work on this and I put together, seat A, seat B, and a situation that was a win-win. And I said, hey, look, you either buy me out or I buy you out. I don't care which seat you take. And in the end, he ended up buying me out. We're still great friends today. The business is thriving. And I went off and did my own thing. So that's really how the exit came together.
I love that because I find the exit story so interesting because most entrepreneurs, most business owners don't start their business with the end in mind. They'll start the business because they're trying to end a former chapter, but they're not thinking about how that next chapter could possibly end. So, there's all these messy exits, there's these relationships that suffer, there's these things they don't think about, like having the GM or planning for a sellable business. So I love that you had all of those elements in that story and you were able to maintain that relationship with your partner.
Yeah, it was good. And one thing that I'll add to that, we started the business so young, and like I said, I was a plumber. I didn't know anything about accounting, sales, marketing, business. And so from the beginning, I was forced to surround myself with people that were smarter than me. And I think if I had to narrow it down to one thing that's the key to my success, it's been I'm the dumbest guy in the room. Like I know what I don't know, and surrounding myself with mentors and just doing exactly what they tell me to do. If you're going to pay a mentor or a coach, find the best at whatever it is you want to do and then just do what they tell you to do. And that's literally what we did. And I mentioned this in the pre stuff, but we were on the Inc. fastest growing companies in America, and we had internal systems and processes that allowed a company to come look at us that's an $8 billion company, because I just did exactly what I was told to do. And so I think and again, I think it's a lot more simple than we make it. The key to my success has just been, finding great mentors, finding great coaches, consultants, and just doing what you're told. Like it's not that hard.
I completely agree. I'm laughing because I'm like, that's exactly what I did and how I started my business was listen to people who have stepped in those footsteps, know exactly what to do, and just listen to them and go do what they say. Because I always say, try it their way and prove it doesn't work for you. But don't assume it won't work for you because they probably know better than you. And you got to shed the ego and you got to get rid of that.
Yeah, so good.
Now, the next chapter, right? Is that when you got into real estate? I want to talk about, the next level of investing for freedom, right? This whole theme of investing for freedom, like kind of these different layers of freedom, right? It's like, I'll start the business. Okay, now I want to be free from this so that Kara can take time off or whatever that may look like. Let's unravel the next layer of investing for freedom, which is probably the real estate era of Mike.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Yeah. And I'll back up just real quick.
Sure.
When Kara and I got married, she knew that she wanted to be a stay at home mom. And you kind of pointed this out. But I think it's
Hmm.
important that we're pig headed. One of the greatest books ever was The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. And he talks about that pig headed discipline. She wanted to be a stay at home mom. So from the time we got married, even though she was working, we would put her money aside so that we didn't, it's called lifestyle creep, so that
Yeah.
she didn't have to work. And so anyway, I just wanted to address that because, you said that Kara's goal and dream was to be a stay at home mom. And sorry, all the moms out there, but I think she accomplished it and did the best job in the world. But anyway, to real estate. Back to mentors and coaches. So when I hired the HVAC consulting company in 2005, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing, I went to a thing called Profit Launch, and which was a 3-day business planning event. And while we were there, my head coach was actually speaking from stage, and he made this comment. He said, if your business isn't helping you achieve your personal goals, you just bought yourself a job. And man, that hit me right between the eyes. And part of prepping for Profit Launch was they required us to like kind of draft out our goals and dreams and desires and what we wanted life to look like. And so Karen and I set this goal, and this is where my mindset was then. I thought I was going to be working in that business. So again, this is 2005. I thought I was going to be working in that business until I was 60 or 70. I had no intention of being a serial entrepreneur. I just thought this was the pathway. And so when they made that comment about your business not helping you achieve your goals, you just own a job, I started thinking like, I'm going to be 60, 70 years old, and I don't know what my retirement's going to look like. And so Kara and I set a goal that year to buy 2 income producing properties a year for 10 years. And it was partially because of that, and partially because we were profitable from day one. We never lost money in that business. My accountants in the early days had already said, hey, you need to start finding some more write-offs, and real estate's a great way to do it. I didn't understand any of that at that point in time. But we set that goal, 2 income producing properties a year for 10 years. We bought our first properties in 2006. We bought 2 single families. And then in 2007, a 72 space mobile home park deal just kind of like appeared out of nowhere to me. And I went through this whole process where I didn't understand mobile home park investing. I didn't know what it was, but I had a mentor. And I went to him and he looked at the deal and he said, this is a home run. I didn't have the money for a down payment. He lent me the money for a down payment. I
Wow.
assumed a loan from a private money investor. So I got this 72 space mobile home park deal with no money down. It cash flowed from day one. I think we paid all in 490, but again, I didn't put any of my own money into the deal. And I sold it a few years ago for I think 3 or 1.65 million. And that's like, the real estate, I don't want to go off on a tangent on real estate, but there's so many tax benefits and cash flow. And to make a
Absolutely.
long story short, Kara and I ended up with, when we sold the company, I had 45 single family properties, 3 commercial buildings, and 5 mobile home parks the day that I sold the company. And so that brought us to that point.
It's perfect because it's you get the cash flowing assets, you got the tax benefits of it, but you also, I want to go back to the mentors and coaches again and say that is the key to unlock it. Like that is 100% how you get involved in these things that you're like, well, I know nothing about that. And I also fully believe in investing in what you know or what you have enough guidance on to really understand. Because when people invest in things they don't understand, that's where it gets messy. But if you're investing with the right guidance, it's huge. And Mike, how did you find these mentors or how did they come into your life where if people are listening right now and they're like, I want that guy, I need
Yeah.
that guy in my life. How did you cultivate these mentorship relationships?
Again, it can't be this simple, right? But I think the
Mhm.
key to finding mentors is getting really clear on what it is that you need in life and then being transparent and authentic and vulnerable and asking. Because how can somebody know if they can help you or not if you're not asking? And I think there's this inherent just kind of predisposition to us as humans. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to ask for help. We don't want to say, I don't know how. And there's 2 types of mentors. There's the paid mentor, and then there's the mentor that just wants to help you. And one of my greatest mentors is probably 85 years old now. He's probably done more for me than anyone else. And I've never paid him a penny other than we've done business together. And he's made a lot of money from me in business, but he's not like a paid coach. He's not a paid mentor. So if you just ask the question, hey, this is what I need, who do you know that I could hire as a coach? Somebody probably knows them. Or number 2, like, if you just show up and you add value to people, those mentors are going to kind of shift themselves out. And I'll tell you real quick, the number one mentor that I just mentioned, his name's Barry. He's also a hard money lender. He's been very successful in real estate and business. And so when I first went to him, I didn't go to him asking him for free advice. I went to him asking to borrow money for my business. And because I knew he was a hard money lender, and my business wasn't at a point yet where a bank would finance me. And so I went and asked him to borrow money. And so then he started peeling apart my business, asking me business questions and also mentoring me simultaneously. And so sometimes like your bankers, your attorneys, your property managers, your advisors are paid advisors because you're doing business with them, but they want you to succeed also. And so you can get some of the best benefit from those vendors that we pay as well.
Totally. I love that. And for those listening, right, we got a lot of entrepreneurs listen to the show who are probably shaken by your statement about I think you just bought yourself a job. And I know that a lot of them are going, "Oh crap, I think he's right." What advice do you have for the business owners listening or even for the folks who are just going, "You know what? I feel like I'm not living my full potential and I'm not truly free. I'm not miserable, but I know there's some freedom to unlock." Like what are some of the pieces of advice that you give on that theme of investing for freedom?
So I'll start with what maybe is the obvious, but figure out what are your 1, 2, 3 things that only you can do in your business. And then try to figure out how to outsource everything else. And I know that's a bold statement, and people are probably saying, well, Mike, that's easy for you to say, 10, 20 years later. But no, that's not true. From the get go, our business was growing so fast. And the question is, was my business growing so fast because I outsourced and did what I just told you to do? Or was my business growing so fast that it forced me to do that? And my business was growing so fast because I constantly knew we had work coming in and I didn't know marketing and I was coaching and the coaches are challenging me. So I think just figure out what you're really good at and only you can do in that business and then kind of rank that. And you're not going to get there overnight. You're not going to be able to focus on just the top three things. But what are the things that are at the bottom of the list and how can you outsource that? And there's no excuse in this day and age because there's so many resources to outsource to vendors and VAs and all kinds of stuff like that. There's really no financial excuse. And then the next thing that I'll say about that too, it's really easy for us as real estate investors to say, okay, if I invest $100,000 in a property and it pays me $10,000 a year, that's a great investment. It's a 10% return. I have tax benefits, got some debt that we can deploy. But not very many entrepreneurs will stop and say, hey, if I invest $100,000 over the next 12 months in 2 employees that bring me an additional $10,000, that's a 10% return on my investment. People don't think about it the same. And so we would do that all day long when it comes to real estate, but we won't do it when it comes to investing in, external resources. And there's 2 things that I want to point out with that. Number one, by you being freed up by investing $100,000 in 2 different employees, by you being freed up, it's probably not going to make you 10,000. Those 2 employees are probably going to make you a lot more money if you identify them right, hire them right, and eliminate the right things off your plate. That might be 30,000, 50,000. It might be 100% return. You might make another 100K on the bottom line. But you being freed up 10, 20, 30 hours a week, how much more money can you go make in your zone of genius? So it's interesting to me that people will invest $100,000 in the stock market, or they'll take $10,000 a year out of their check or income or whatever and put it into a 401k for 50 years from now. But you won't take $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 and invest it in your business. That's the problem right there.
Yeah, and not to mention the benefits of hiring more people who understand your method and then can make your process scalable. You can test out the scalability, you can build training, you can get people as like GM or an operations manager installed, and that increases the value of your business. So not only is it just cash flow return on investment, but now you're also increasing the value of the business itself for when you go to exit. So it's just like there's really no downside to having the right people in your corner in your business, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if I could add one more thing to that, I mean, if you're listening and we've been talking about this with coaches and mentors, that'll never work in my market. I couldn't do that in my business. My customers would never allow that. Okay, if you're in that boat and you just own a job because you're working 50, 60, 70 hours, you can't take a vacation, you can't shut it down at 4 o'clock and go to the kids' game or whatever. I didn't say it. A mentor of mine did. You just own a job. And you might have to really ask yourself, is this a limiting belief that I'm stuck in? Or number 2, is this truly the reality of my business? And maybe you need to shift. Maybe you need to adjust. Maybe you need to add other product lines. Maybe you need to, do something completely different if you truly are looking for freedom.
And Mike, what does your version of freedom look like for you and Cara right now? And what's next?
Esther Perel made a comment about marriage. She said, the majority of us will be married to 3 different people in our lifetime. The question is, will it be the same person or 3 different people? And I was like, what does that mean? And she was talking about, the person that I married 23, 20, almost 24 years ago is completely different than who she is today. And so am I. I started really looking at seasons in life too. What makes us different and where are we at? The last 23 years has really been about raising children and being present and scaling businesses. We've done well. And I did all that while being present. My kids have seen the world. We always pencil in vacations first. I didn't miss football games. I didn't miss baseball games. I didn't miss dance competitions. We're in a different season now. My oldest just got engaged. My middle son works with us in the business now. And my daughter's getting ready to, go to Ireland to do some stuff for a bit. I'm in a season of, so what does freedom look like? That was the question. And I'm in a season of, I'm ready to grind. I'm ready to do some big things. And I think we just have to be aware of, I love the question, what does freedom look like? And for me right now, it's still being able to do whatever it is that I want. Some people on the listening right now might want to work 70 hours a week. And as long as it's not taking away from, your family or those relationships, the experiences and memories that you truly want, that's fine. So Karen and I are actually in a season where, if I need to travel to buy businesses or whatever, she can travel with me. It's like an extended vacation. And so, freedom to me at this point in time, and Kara's said this for years, just make sure that we don't get trapped in a certain position. Because when the kids start having kids and they're moving all over, she's like, I want to travel and be able to see them. So as long as, again, I can have the freedom to go wherever I want, that's really freedom to me, just to be with the people that I want. And that could be business partners, that could be clients, that could be vendors. I never want to have to say that I have to keep this client because I need their money. And that's the opposite of freedom to me. And same thing with a business or a job. That early mentor of mine always said, if it's not fun, I'm not doing it. And so that's what freedom looks like to me.
I love it. Freedom in the form of flexibility.
Yep.
I guess what are the next steps for you guys? I'm hearing the flexibility of adapting to your kids' version of their freedom, right? So now it's how do we enjoy more time with them and just grow together? What's next for you and Cara, or what are you currently specifically pursuing in your businesses right now?
So I think at any stage we have to really interrogate person that we've built, the dreams that we think we're going after, et cetera. So I've been really last year was a really quiet season for me. It was a season of internal reflecting and what do we really want. And what I realized, and I just want to say this really quick, and then I'll answer your question. Like we have to be really cognizant of that because the person and the lifestyle that I built the last 20 years was a default no. No, I can't go to dinner with you. No, I can't travel. No, I can't. No, I can't. No, I can't. Because I had to really interrogate any yes that I gave. And so I've really been thinking through that. And I woke up too realizing that, I thrive on being with people. And so Karen and I have been talking about, what does that look like? And I, set an intention to have dinner or lunch with one person a week because that's what I thrive on. And so, what does it look like in business? Honestly, we're restructuring the mobile home park portfolio. We got up to 35 communities. We've sold 16 of them. We had some challenges just like everybody else in COVID and had to restructure. And we have about 600 more homes to set where I'm completely focused on that right now. I'd like to get that done in 1 to 3 years and then exit, if you will. Now, whether that's a complete sale or whether that's just turning it over to our internal property management team or an external team, I'm not really connected to the outcome. I just want that to be done. And I'm no longer investing further in that affordable housing space. I honestly, once I kind of get through the next 6 to 12 months and get that solidified, we're going to go back to buying HVAC and plumbing companies. That's kind of the next phase for me. Focus more on raising capital. I built a company called Velocity Venture Partners where we have a small team that helps. We partner up with other operators and we raise the capital and do the asset management. So we're doing a deal right now in the luxury vacation space with a buddy of mine, that kind of stuff. So, but really, if I had to put my flag on one thing after we exit the mobile home park space, it would be I want to roll up 50 to 60 HVAC companies and really just stay focused in that service lane for the next season. That's how long will that last? I don't know.
I love it. So, fun fact, my husband runs a basement waterproofing company, has since he was 22 for the last 15 years. And I had him on the show several times, and he said, if I could go back, I would have done HVAC.
That's
He said,
funny.
if I could start over right now, I would be in HVAC. Like it's way more sellable, it's way more repetitive. There's way more of a pain point to the customer. All of these things that he always says, HVAC's where it's at. I wish I would have done that sooner. So I love that you're also in that space. And that's the grind, right? That you're going through right now. And then you guys also host a mastermind group too, don't you? You and Cara?
Yeah, it's called Next Level Couple. And the way we've done it the last couple of years, it's just been a really intimate group, 5 couples. We spend the year together. We do 2 big trips, monthly calls, bring in speakers, all of that kind of stuff. But we're kind of turning it on its head this year and then going to relaunch next year. So we're getting ready to launch a virtual community that'll probably launch in March, a much lower price point because the 5 couple community is $50,000 currently. And we started realizing there's so many people that want exposure to this. They want to grow together as a couple, but they're not ready to commit the $50,000, which I completely understand. I mean, you could buy a whole other employee for that, right? But yeah, so we're going to launch a virtual community. And then last year we tested out an event in November. We're going to do that again this year. It'll be 50 couples here in Austin. And then we'll do a big trip for the virtual community in September. And then next year we'll relaunch the 5 couple community.
Love it. Amazing. How can people learn more about that? Because we will be in March when this hits the air. So, is there any information you can share with our listeners about that?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is to just text the word couple to 480-531-7519.
All right. Mike, any other parting advice for our listeners on how they can unlock the next level of freedom for themselves?
I've kind of said this a few times, but I think we just overcomplicate it. Just get really, really clear on what it is you actually really want, and then be pig-headed about that. And one of my favorite things that I've been thinking about lately is like it's impossible to steer a parked car. So, so many times we want to kind of perfect the outcomes, and we're not going to launch until we're ready. And I think perfect is the enemy of done, and sometimes we just need to get moving. And so, get really clear on what your goals are. Start moving toward them. And by the way, if you miss it, you can adjust along the way. I think so many people are just gripped by fear on, once I start heading this direction, there's no turning back. And that's just not true. I mean, I've adjusted 150 times in my life, and probably so many more, but just figure it out and keep adjusting.
Well, for those of you listening, if you haven't already grabbed a notebook, a pen, or your notes app and written down half the stuff that Mike said, do it. Save this episode and come back to it because I know I'll be re listening for some of these quotes because they're just absolute gold, Mike. Thank you for that. Again, one more time, how can people find out more about working with you and Cara or more about your Velocity Venture Partners?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is follow me on Instagram. It's at the Mike Ayala, or with the investing at Velocity Venture Partners. Just go to our website, velocityventurepartners.com.
Fantastic. Mike, thank you so much for spending the time with me today and coming on our show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey there. Are you looking for more tax and accounting help for your small business, but tired of the confusing jargon or feeling judged for your questions? This is exactly why we created a completely free Keep What You Earn community centered around this podcast. This community is a space to ask questions, hop on our monthly connection calls, and explore more information about our episodes and our guests. Click on the link in the show notes to join us in this month's call to chat with me and our other guest experts. See you there. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.